I like this product for a lot of reasons. Not because you're going to become a baseball card legend with anything you're going to pull out of here, but it's USA Baseball, so Olympics, Team USA, can't go wrong there, obviously. And you have all the developmental kind of players that are in the system that one day could be major leaguers, college players on actual Team USA in the Olympics, or they could be nothing. So it's kind of interesting. You'll see like some 14-year-old in here, signing a card. So it's a unique set. I've never opened one. I've just seen the cards from them. So the way I think it works, but we'll see, is they'll have like collegiate All-Americans mixed in with the actual, USA team players, mixed in with the developmental Team USA players, U16, 17. I think it goes all the way down to U14. But for the money, if you're going to buy something from Target, unless it's, Donruss Optic basketball or Panini Prism basketball or something super hot, something that's sitting on the shelf, when it comes out and it's not going to sell out in a minute. Stars and Stripes, this 2020 box or any of these boxes for other years, I don't know if they're all called Stars and Stripes. I guess they were, but they're all USA kind of similar ideas. This is a good thing to buy. And again, not for money, but it does two things. One, when I told you all that, it's good to learn the product by opening stuff. All these guys, unless you're a baseball junkie, you're not going to know who they are because they're not even drafted yet, half of them. Half of them aren't even playing college baseball. Half of them are just getting into high school. So you have some obscure names, but what that's good for is you'll kind of prospect some of these guys by accident. So you pull an autograph of somebody, like I don't even know who's in here at this point. But let's say you pull somebody that's U16, and all of a sudden 3 years from now he's being talked about for the top 10 pick. You'll know a lot about that kid way before, so you could get a read on what you think his market's going to be. Where if you had no skin in the game, you had nothing invested, you never heard of him, and you had no reason to look him up, because it's not like there's listings for the best 16-year-old player that's very easily to available to find for somebody like they have the college players or the minor league players that are ranked. So it gives you kind of a start and a head start, I should say, on some of these young guys that some of them will be top prospects, but like I said, some of them will be nothing. But it is something that will get you going a little bit and give you some interest to go look up somebody. Now, if you pull somebody who's more relevant, who's been drafted or is in college and is a stud and will be drafted one day, that's good for financial, because for $19.99, you're getting per box. So it's one pack. Oh no, this one, the other one, the Panini Elite Edition had just one pack in there with 5 cards. So this is 5 cards per 7 packs per box, and you got 2 autographs or memorabilia. So basically, you're getting 2 hits per box for $19. So if one of those hits is something decent, you could get a $10, $20 card. But there's also some cards in these type of sets that could pull in, $100. Maybe, if you get the best player, $200. But that's today. Now, if those guys go on to be, real major league players, who knows what this stuff was worth. Like, I haven't went back and looked at the other years of this stuff, and seen what, trying to think of a guy, Team USA kit or whatever. Just pick anybody, and now he's MLB All-Star. I don't know what the value is. It's probably a good amount because technically I would assume that for a lot of these guys, this is their first baseball card that's made by a real company, Panini. So let's open this and see what we got. And I'll do my best to decipher who these players are. And we'll see where I'm at in my baseball knowledge. But even for me, if I open these things, I don't know who someone is, and it's a decent card, then obviously I'm going to know who that player is pretty soon. So I'll share that all with you. So Stars and Stripes, 5 cards per pack. Now, these are a little harder to see with the glare in the camera, but all right, Robert Hassel. I do know who that is. He is one of the top pitchers in, what they say, prep, so high school. He's not in college. I'm not sure if he has a commitment at this point, but he is from, I believe, Tennessee. No. He pitches now, but he's going to play. He's basically going to be a hitter. That's the thing with this kid. So he is a dual threat at this point, but he's not going to pitch long term. He's going to be a bat. So he's a lefty, and people like him. But I don't know. Again, with a lot of these kids that are in high school, if you're not familiar with the Major League Draft, first of all, we don't even know if there's going to be a draft this year. It's supposed to be in June like it is every year. Who knows if that happens? It doesn't look likely. So they were talking about maybe combining, 2021, 2020, and the international pool and making a one draft sometime in the winter, which would be what I think they should do anyway. But the reason they do the baseball draft during the season, unlike, the other sports where they're in the off season, is the minor league system in baseball. They have what's known as short seasons and rookie ball, which, goes until basically right at the beginning of September. So they want the kids they drafted to get some reps, kind of get the butterflies out of their system this year. So next year, it's full professional baseball. Whether they're in single A, repeat the Gulf Coast League or whatever. But like the Mets have the Brooklyn Cyclones. So that season starts about halfway through the other minor league season, the major league season, and then it ends. So I don't know, maybe they play 30, 40, 50 games, maybe more. But that's where most of the Mets first round, important prospects who they believe in go their first go. So those kids will miss that this year, which is unfortunate for them. But if they had the draft in the winter and then combined the international guys, I just think it would make a lot more sense. And I think then you'd start to see trading of draft picks like the other sports for real players or other draft picks, which I think will just add a lot more excitement to the winter meetings and that stuff, which have kind of, you have your big free agents, you have your trade, but most of it is just kind of nothing's going on. Where the NBA is taking over in the off season, and that's why the NBA is almost leapfrogging the other sports at this point in terms of popularity, because it's 24/7, 365. But anyway, so that's who that is. Austin Martin, I definitely know who this is. He is from Vanderbilt. He has the potential to go number 1 overall. So if you're interested in guys to pay attention to whether you should spend money on because he's going to be expensive right out of the gate, it's this kid. He's basically one of the couple guys who could be real 5-tool players in this. he's not a sure thing, number one pick. The other kid, I don't know how to pronounce his name, Torensky, or something like that. Spencer Torensky is a first baseman and a huge power hitter, but because he's a first baseman and this kid's a shortstop, it might be likely that I think Detroit has the number one pick this year. They'll go with this kid. So his price will be expensive out of the gate, just like like a C.J. Abrams, who any top 10 pick who's a shortstop is going to be pricey. So this is a good guy, Austin Martin, Vanderbilt, to pay attention to if you're a baseball prospector and you like the Bowman first stuff, because before you spend a bunch of money on an unknown player, you could get a leg up on whether he's worth it. Me personally, I'm going to vote no. I like some other guys, but that's who that is. Steven Millam. So I don't know who that is, but it says 15 U national team, so a kid. Holly Hector, okay, which 18U, not sure who he is. I'll just look quick. Youngest member of 2019, 18U, national team. Threw a couple innings here and there, but long ways to go, it sounds like. And Patrick Bailey. So I know him also. He is, I would say, the best catcher in the class of whatever this 2000, could be 2023, but whatever the next class is, whatever you want to call it, draft class. He's the best catcher. There's another kid, Sodersom, something like that is a prep school, high school kid who's a catcher, but he might play other positions. But this kid's a catcher, kind of is a safe selection for anybody. He's not overwhelming, but he kind of does a lot of things well. And, think maybe a JT Real Muto type of player at some point down the road. So no hits there, just regular cards, but at least we're learning a little bit. I hope we're learning. There's Patrick Bailey again. So same card. Same player, a different card. So these obviously have a couple different images. So that's card number 2. Let me see. And card number 80. Yeah, so these are just base cards in the set. So unlike a Topps where it's an image variation and something that's printed differently, these are just different set cards. All right, so now this is a numbered card we got there. So that's 249 Burl Caraway. Not really familiar with him, but he is collegiate national team. So left-handed relief specialist, so that makes sense, Guys who have no chance to be starters right out of the gate, who are college pitchers, they generally aren't high on people's draft boards. Now, this kid might be different, but he's only 6 foot, 173, college. Yeah. If I was going to get a numbered card, this is not the one I would want. Obviously, pitchers don't sell as well as position players, but he doesn't sound like a very good bet to be a real major league player. So Milan Tolentino. Don't know who that is. Infielder. Shortstop, Southern Cal. Really doesn't say much about him, so I'm going to assume that he ain't got much going on. Okay, so this is the guy I like. Spencer Torkelson. All right. Monster power. Monster. I think some scouts have him as an 80 on the power scale. So if you're not familiar with scouting like that, they have the basically the tool scale, which goes 20 to 80. So 80 is perfect, or the best, meaning he has the best chance to become an elite, whatever. So if you have 80 speed, again, getting an 80 is super rare. Wander Franco has an 80 hit tool right now, and that's why his prices are so high, because it's super rare to have scouts give somebody or even mention a perfect tool. So this kid has that chance. He is a first baseman. He's not the greatest defensive player in the world. Maybe he moves to the outfield down the road. But the only reason that he would not go number one is, like I mentioned before, is his position. No first baseman, believe it or not, of all the great players and all the great, home run hitters and all the just stats that come at first base, no first baseman has ever been drafted number one overall in the history of the Major League Draft. So that would be historic if he accomplished that, but he's got all the upside to be not only the number one pick, but really a player that you want to invest in, because home runs sell. Chicks dig the long ball. You remember that commercial? All right, then we got Colby Halter. So he is 18U. Again, I just look at the backs quick on these, but after I'm done with this, I'll go through them and make sure I didn't miss anything. But if the write-up is like the other kid was like threw an inning against Chinese Taiwan, that's not inspiring that he's a huge prospect. But I could be wrong, obviously. And with the age of these kids, things can change also. So I might watch this video back in a couple years from now and be like, wow, you were an idiot. Anthony Volpe, I think he's... he's been around for a while. That's why I know his name. He was, since 15 years old, he's been involved. So he's one of the guys that they picked young, and he's still here. But other than that, I don't know much about him. Alex Burleson, we saw him in the Donruss box with the shiny. So he was an All-American college last year. So little repeat. Now, Will Wilson is already drafted. I want to say the Angels drafted him, but he got traded to the Giants one way or another. But he's in the Giants system, and he is a shortstop, infield type, and his Bowman first card came out in Bowman draft this year, so he's a familiar face. First round pick. Okay, Kai Caranato. Okay, don't know anything about him. Pitcher, infielder, that's kind of interesting, but, well, makes sense because it's 15U, so everybody who's good pitches and plays the infield at that age. I was going to say, there's not a lot of pitcher infield college players. I think the majority of them end up in the outfield as opposed to playing shortstop and pitching, once you get high up. And then we got Nick Hazy. Again, pronunciation's not my strong suit, so bear with me. Small lefty. Again, nothing to write home about there. All right, so we got 4 packs left. There's still 2 hits to be seen, unless somebody opened up these already and resealed them on me, but I don't think so. So there's a hit in there. It's definitely a jersey material card. So hopefully it's a signed one and numbered low by a good player, but who knows. Okay. So Lucas Dunn, another collegiate kid. And our Doug Nikhazy is our hit. We're just talking about him. And it is a shit hit. So we got a 5'10 lefty who's, I don't know, so I'm going to assume he doesn't have much upside. And a nice white big patch. No number. Corner scratch there. You can see that. So this is not what you want. And this is the reason boxes are so frustrating, is because of all the players, you get the one with the least upside. Also, you get, instead of an autograph or 2 autographs, you get, a piece of white fucking jersey from, his, when he was 12 years old, maybe. It's that's the frustrating part. That's why you shouldn't do it, because that can happen. So as much as you think you're gonna pull, the kid Spencer Torkinson's, auto, which at least will pay for the box in most cases, you get that, which honestly you can't give away. So it looks cool to the regular person. It's interesting, but it ain't worth shit. Okay, Mikey Romero, young kid, 15. Cole Wilcox. Now, I know his name also. There's 2 pitchers from that are basically in this draft from Georgia, and they were the 1-2 punch. So this was the number 2 punch to the other guy, Ethan Hancock, who at some points people say are number 1 pick, and then he kind of dropped off and up and down, but he's considered one of the best pitchers, Hancock, and this kid is, in the mix also. Top 10 maybe, top 15 pick, but very, very good staff Georgia had last year. All right, and we have Drew Burris, who is 15. Looks kind of like young Giancarlo Stanton without the muscle. And he's a center fielder who's very fast. Played in Baseball World Cup. So, good for him. Again, a lot of these kids at 15, by 16, they're hanging out under the bleachers. And then by 17, who knows what's happening to them. So, you can't really expect much, considering even the best players at 15, there's so much. I mean, it's one thing the jump from the minor leagues after you're drafted to the pros. That's a tremendous leap. But from 15 to ever being a Major League Baseball player, I mean, for the average person when they're born, I'd say it's probably 1 in 400 million shot of being a major leaguer. For a kid that's 15 on, USA's radar and kind of known, where they'd make a card out of them, I'd say it's still about a 1 in 4 million shot, maybe even 10 million shot. I mean, so it's fun. It's fun that they put kids in there. I'm sure it's amazing for that kid to have it. He's probably the man on campus if he's not already. But to have your own baseball card, the closest thing I came to my own baseball card was when you were in Little League and they do picture day, and you could pick to get the smaller size picture that is the same size as a baseball card. So that was my glory. Andrew Vaughn, okay. We know Andrew Vaughn, or you should know Andrew Vaughn. White Sox pick this year. Number, 3 in the draft. Huge potential. He's already a top 25. I think he's on some list. He's top 20 prospect. 30 home runs, 300, 100 RBIs. Pencil him in. That's what they say. First baseman. Again, the White Sox, I was talking about earlier, have a lot of young talent and a lot of talent in the pipeline. So, lineup of Robert, Jimenez, Vaughn, Moncada could look very, very real and kind of be like what the Blue Jays have established right now, where they got the shot to have a bunch of young guys who are all similar age, who are all potential studs. So, Andrew Vaughn. Nolan McLean, he is, what does that say, 18? Let's see what he's got going on. So, time on the mound. He could throw in the mid-90s and crush 500-foot homers. So like I was saying before, the other kid they said he pitched an inning against Chinese Taiwan, this kid's throwing in the mid-90s and crushing 500-foot home runs. Sounds like Bryce Harper when he was high school kid. So he says his coach said there are probably only 10 to 15 guys in the world who could actually do that. He's right. Maybe even less. But Nolan McLean. So he's a name that I will definitely look into. I don't know if he's draft eligible or if he is draft eligible and he's heading to college. I'll find out about him because he's interesting. Little freak athlete there. Drew Romo, getting 18. See what he's got going on. Catcher. South Korea. He had 60 defensive putouts. So, as you can imagine, I am not going to spend time looking him up at this point. Bobby Witt Jr., familiar face, one of the most familiar faces, considering he's who everybody is waiting for to come out in the next installment of the Bowmans for the first Bowman because of all the kids drafted already, and he was drafted number 2 overall. He did not have a card in last year's Bowman for the Bowman draft that came out. So pretty much everybody else who's important had a card. Rushman, Vaughn, Abrams, Riley Green, Hunter Bishop, who else? Shea Langoliers, Nick Lodolo, Alex Manoa. I think that's pretty much the top 10. Probably missing somebody in there. Oh, J.J. Blade. And I think that's all the guys. But anyway, he will be in the next Bowman. Hopefully, possibly in the same set with Jason Dominguez, which will be amazing in terms of value and what a case will go for. Not only because of those two, but because everything stopped, production-wise with Panini and Topps. So when the cases actually come out that have these guys, nobody can predict. Then how many can they make? It's a lot of moving parts. So it's just going to be like a lot of people waiting and keep waiting. And now the price could get ridiculous, but we'll see. But Bobby Witt, again, these are all base cards. That's why I'm not spending any time on them. They're silver. They're shiny. So they're picking up the glare, but I'm just focusing on the players here. This kid is Mick Abel. I know his name too. He is... Let me think for a second. I'm going to say, just because his picture's tipping me off, he's 6'6". A couple of these kids blend together. But this kid is a high school kid for sure. He is big already. He has a frame that is for pitching that could, what they say is projectable. He's lanky right now, but he's got a lot of room to put on mass, so people like that. And he's already a very, very talented pitcher. So he's a starter in everybody's minds. He's big. And honestly, he has a very high ceiling. And definitely one of the better ceilings of any of the high school pitchers that are in this draft. So he'll be a first rounder. How high? Depends, because again, guys like this, they're projectable, but that also makes them very hard to project. So the 6'6" guy, he's built for pitching. If he puts on another 25 pounds and kind of bulks up so he doesn't get hurt, but you never know how that goes. Sometimes putting on weight and muscle for these pitchers kills them. I believe that one of the main reasons we have so many pitching injuries, there's a long list of them, but one of the reasons is the muscle. The flexibility in the tendons and everything's not there, because when you're pounding weights, quite honestly, you're tightening everything. So to be a little looser, and not just flexible, just looser muscles in general, because there's some muscular guys who are very flexible. But I just think the mass of your body needs a little more give, to pitch and not get hurt. Like Bartolo Colon, he did steroids, so that helped too. But that kind of build. CC Sabathia till his knees went from being heavy. Like, it's kind of fatter guys. David Wells had a bad back, but his arm never went. So I don't know if there's anything to that, but there might be in my mind. This kid is also a prep player, Pete Crow Armstrong. He is another high upside type of kid, but he went into basically this season, or last season I should say, as potentially one of the top picks. Kind of didn't do as well as people thought. And now he's still, a top 10, top 15 pick, but people have jumped off his bandwagon a little bit. Okay, we got Tyler Brown. So he's a collegiate kid. Nice tattoo on his arm. You can see that there. Where it's Vanderbilt's top reliever. All right, so, listen, closers and relievers get drafted nowadays. The jury's still out for me of whether that's worth a draft pick, because if you're drafting a specialist, most of the time in traditional baseball history, the reason guys became relievers was because they could not hack it as a starter, like Mariano Rivera, for instance, and you name 1,000 other guys. So why not just draft starters? Because starters are more valuable in terms of draft capital, and turn the ones who only have 2 pitches or maybe 1 dominant pitch and let them be relievers through the minor league system, but start them all starters in case you hit, as opposed to just drafting a kid who only can be a reliever. Now, obviously, you could go the other way and kind of reverse engineer a reliever into a starter, with maybe the concept being that, hey, they got more bullets in the cannon because they didn't throw as many innings. But guess what? Not until college were they relievers for most of them. So how many pitches are they really saving? Because they were pitching through high school, and that's where, and little league and middle school, where most of the damage is done, quite honestly, especially with year-round baseball. So that's just my 2 cents on drafting relievers in general, but teams do it. It does make sense because it's such an important thing in baseball today, but again, drafts in any sport are about getting the most bang for your buck, the most upside of where you're drafting. So if you're drafting number 20 and you could get the 10th best player, that's a lot better than drafting, number 10 and getting... Here's the analogy I meant to make. If you're drafting 30 and you get the 20th best player, that's a better job than if you're drafting, let's say, number 10 and you get the 19th best player. Even though you got the better player, you didn't use the position correctly. If that makes sense to you guys. So, all right. So you got the checklist of the team, which you could look at all the players who are basically the guys we were just talking about, as we pulled them. But this is the younger team. So this is U15's team. All right. Nick Lofton. I don't know if he's related to Kenny Lofton. Probably not. But again, not a whole lot going on for him on the little write-up. But again, that's not a completely telltale sign. Brandon Oliveira, 15U. All right. Got a unbelievable hair and facial hair for a 15-year-old. So he might be one of those, I don't know if he's Cuban or not. Kind of looks a little, Spanish, but he might be one of those, came over here and he might be 23 instead of 15. He's got that type of look, which does happen a lot. When I was in high school, we played a football team, local high school. They beat us. Turns out there was a 24-year-old on the team. And not because the coaches were intentionally trying to hide it, just because the kid moved there. Nobody knew. He lied. His family lied. And somehow a 24-year-old, of all things, got into a high school. Why? he wanted to be in high school or his family wanted him in high school is the scary part, but that's what happens, so it does happen. All right, last pack, so there's definitely a hit in here because there's supposed to be 2 in the box. We got 1, so let's see what we got. Okay, Benjamin Ryland. All right, another 15-year-old. Calvert Clark, 16. So the silhouettes, we'll see what that is. It's definitely a jersey of some sort, but this better be signed if I got a 15-year-old and a 16-year-old. Okay, so it's signed. It is numbered there. 38 out of 199. Again, now this is a kid that, whether this card is worth anything or not, probably not. At least now I will know about Calvert Clark. Moving forward, he's 16 now. One day he'll be 18 and ready to be drafted, and the next thing you know, he'll be in Bowman Draft or Bowman Chrome first Bowman. So if you have 3 years of information on a player, makes it a lot easier to project what you actually think he's going to do in the pros, as opposed to, taking 2 weeks before the set comes out to be like, all right, who's good? Oh, he was drafted number 2. Okay, I'm looking for him. But also, you could tell a cheap product in a lot of cases. The sticker auto here, the patch is just your basic patch. Nice looking cards though, but the edges here, that's the other thing with buying boxes and stuff from Targets and Walmarts, is the condition of the cards is really, up in the air with stuff that's not your high-end product that not sitting there for a while. Because, these boxes might have been sitting there for 3 weeks. They get thrown around. You got kids grabbing them. So if you're dealing with a Donruss Optic, which is gone in 2 seconds, nobody's dropping it on the floor, throwing it around. Stuff like this, go look at the card section next time in your local Target or Walmart. Sometimes it looks like a bomb went off in there. And, these boxes are, they're not exactly very resistant to damage. All right, last 3 players. Austin Hendrick, okay? He is definitely a guy to look at in terms of, future potential, because he reminds a lot of people of Bryce Harper, who I mentioned before. I mean, I saw that comp a lot. He's an outfielder right now. He has it all. He has raw power. He's got speed. He has the body. 6 foot, 200 pounds already. Lefty. Sky's the limit for him, as it says on his card, which he's a guy to pay attention to moving forward here. And he is draft eligible, so you'll probably see him get drafted in the early first round at some point. Drew Romo, again, we had him before. And Nolan Schubert, 15. It says when Schubert packed. I thought it was going to say when Schubert's mother packed his lunch for the 2009 U15 Baseball World Cup, but no. All right, so again, he's 6'5", 195. Holy shit! Wow, that's some 15-year-old. 6'5", 195, 15. But again, too far to project to waste your time doing that. So that's it. Ripped a couple things. I'll do more of this just for the fun of it, talk some baseball, because while there's nothing going on in sports, it's driving me insane, because normally I would spend much more time going over players and what happened and what's going to happen than obviously this time, where it's more, technical. Let's talk about grading. Let's talk about this, which is good because, again, while nothing's going on, it's a good time to sit down and learn. And a lot of us are quarantined, so learn a new skill. Learn how to grade. Learn what the difference between this and that is. So that's what I've been doing. The next video will be, an intro course to grading. But as much as I can, as many times as I have to go out into the public, I'll pick up a couple boxes of something I see new or something that's good, and we'll have a little fun with it. So Talk to everybody soon. Hope you enjoyed, and stay safe.